everybody, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know.
We have to keep it going. This is incredible.
We are all laughing because we have been still arguing about the stuff that we talked about last episode.
Yeah. Which, again, to our listeners is a week ago, but to us was like minutes.
Literally minutes ago. And then we also argued
or
for
to
like
our listeners was the thing they turned off a week ago.
like a half hour in between episode. And then I came back from the bathroom and we were still arguing about it. And from what I can tell, we agree, and there might be an equivocation. But anyway, none of this matters.
I don't think of it as argument. I think of it as evangelizing, but whatever.
Just kidding. So messed up.
I'm just kidding.
In any case, we are all still friends, even if we disagree. And the cross is effective for you, and the works of the Christian faith are great. In any case,
I just want to talk about Winnie the Pooh, man.
Let's talk about Winnie the Pooh.
I just want to talk.
Canada's greatest bear.
This is Classical Stuff You Should Know. My name is AJ Hannenberg. I'm here with Thomas Magby.
Hi.
And Graham Donaldson.
Hello.
And we are all best friends.
Cool.
And now we are going to talk about a children's book.
Cool. What an introduction. Yeah, so I guess this is the continued series of Thomas talking about the books he actually reads, which at this point in life with three little ones is going to be a bunch of kids' books. So we are going to talk about Winnie the Pooh. We're going to talk about A. Milne. We're going to talk about E.H. Shepard. And
Can we talk about Eeyore?
Why? Do you feel a connection to him? Do you
it makes me nervous of like how popular he is.
Oh, this is interesting.
Anyway, we'll get to it.
It's like the wrong characters being pulled out.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Do you think it was like predestined that we would
don't even make me
have the wrong focus on this? Okay, so in talking about Winnie the Pooh, lots of different directions to take it. We'll be talking a little bit about this. I have the book in front of me. I sent you all the link, but I guess as a way of getting into this, I don't know if these are stories everyone knows about. Graham, like off the bat, knew all this backstory about Winnie the Pooh, so maybe this is more.
Well, the only reason Canadians know about it is because Winnie is a bear named after the city of Winnipeg, which is a Canadian city.
What?
So do you know Winnie the Pooh?
Know this, AJ? Okay.
He's a Canadian bear.
So let's go through this. So I guess we'll start from this angle. So there are these stories called Winnie the Pooh. They're actually based on a real bear, and they're based on a real Christopher Robin, right? Okay, so let's take
It's like the dude's nephew or something.
Son. So let's take so Christopher Robin Milne is the Christopher Robin, and then A. Milne is the guy writing. So let's start it with the Winnie the Pooh side of things. So there's an actual bear that becomes, or there is a real Winnie the Pooh, I guess is one way to take it. There are technically two real Winnie the Poohs, I guess. Let's start with the one you're talking about, Graham. So other than knowing the origin of the name, do you know any more about this story?
Was it a bear that I really don't know.
That's fine.
I don't. All I remember is it had something to do with the war, and either the bear was brought to a zoo to get him away from the war, or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember.
So we'll go like this. So once upon a time, there's this guy named Harry Colburn, and Harry Colburn was I always want to say a vet going to World War II, but that sounds like a veteran. So he was a veterinarian, right? He was an animal doctor who was going to serve in World War I. I might have just misspoken. Going to serve in World War I, and he's Canadian. I only started looking this up. So he was born in England, then moved to Canada when he was 18, and then at the point this story is taking place, he's leaving Canada
We claim him. I mean, Canada claims anybody that's popular that had any time in Canada.
That's fair enough.
We claim Hemingway. I mean, come on.
Okay, cool. So Colburn starts off this journey. I think it's 1914. He's heading off, leaving Canada. He's going to go to fight in Europe. Or I guess he's going to be a veterinarian helping with World War I, taking place over in Europe. So he's on this journey, and they take a little stop. And they take this stop in White River, Ontario. Was this? I don't know.
I'm sure it's some small town.
Small town. And as they're on a train, Colburn is on a train. They take a stop. They get to White River, Ontario, and they get off the train. Colburn's walking around, and he sees this trapper sitting there. So this person who hunts bears. This person who, hunts bears, and he's sitting there with a baby bear, and. if it's not explicitly said, or I don't know, it appears, the trapper has killed the parents of this baby bear and now has just this. Is there a name for a child bear? What's
Orphan bear.
A cub? Yeah, a bear cub. Thank you. That should have come to me more quickly.
White River is a tiny little township just north of Lake Superior, so on the northern side of Ontario. So Ontario kind of hooks down underneath the 49th parallel.
Yeah.
And this is above the 49th, right, just sort of on the northern part of Lake Superior.
Yeah. So Colburn sees this trapper sitting there with a bear cub, and kind of out of whimsy, kind of out of just spur of the moment decision, buys that bear, buys this bear cub from this trapper just sitting on the side of the train tracks, essentially. Buys the bear for $20. This is 1914, so this is approximately $600 in today money.
Dang.
So it's not nothing, right? But I think in the grand scheme of what Winnie the Pooh became, probably small change. But buys this bear, and his regiment is like, "What the heck are you doing? Like, why are you buying a bear as we're going off to war?" Gets made fun of a little bit for this, and has to name this bear. So you've already made reference to this. So the bear is named Winnie, and where does that name come from?
I thought it was from the city of Winnipeg.
It is,
Yeah.
and that's where this regiment, this group of soldiers is from.
So it's like a little mascot.
It's their mascot. That's exactly what it is. So they buy the bear while they're still in Canada. They then go to Europe. They bring the bear with them. So the bear makes this long journey with them and becomes kind of a mascot for, what are they called? The Fort Garry Horse. Is that the name of the regiment is the Fort Garry Horse, and so their mascot is a bear, which I guess makes sense. And so there's just a bear hanging out with these people going off to World War I. Well, Colburn starts getting promoted and is having more and more trouble like maintaining a bear, keeping a bear around and entertained. And so he ultimately will donate Winnie to the London Zoo. So that's where Winnie ends up in the London Zoo, through this kind of weird happenstance of guys going to war, runs across a bear, buys him, takes him to London. So there you go. We got one side of where Winnie comes from. Then there's a. I should also.
Is that how he became the Pooh?
You have not. We have not gotten there yet. This is my question coming into this because that's a weird title for something, and I'm wondering. And my question also is, where does this come from? I hope you will appreciate the answer. One of your links is to the Winnie the Pooh story, like the original one. And we'll read that, which gives the answer. Just so I am somewhat citing my sources, I've made joke in the AMA episodes that my only source of information on like important cultural things like art or whatever is from children's books. And there's a great book called Finding Winnie, written by Lindsay Maddock and illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Lindsay Maddock is I think she's the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of Colburn, of the guy who bought Winnie in the first place. So anyway, that's just a cool connection there. Okay. So and then obviously this Winnie at the London Zoo will have to intersect with the author of these books at some point. So that's the other way that we'll take things. So I guess in conjunction or around the same time, there's this guy named A.A. Milne, and that is for Alan Alexander Milne. He's the author of the Winnie the Pooh books, and he's an author. I think he's written a children's book prior to when he writes these Winnie the Pooh books, but he's looking for ideas of what to write about, and he is to look for ideas. He just starts looking at the toys that his kid plays with, and so his kid Christopher Robin has a bear. And this bear goes by a few names. This bear goes by the name Teddy. This bear goes by the name Edward. It goes by the name Big Bear.
Well, Edward is just the formal.
Is that? I mean, honestly, though. And then ultimately will change the name of his stuffed bear to Winnie after meeting the bear at the London Zoo. Christopher Robin meets Winnie, real bear, at the London Zoo, loves this bear, somehow builds this is given permission by the zookeepers. This is a horrifying story I'm about to like go closer to the bear, like to go past the like outer enclosure to go closer to the bear.
If I'm a zookeeper, I'm looking for those opportunities.
to feed children to bears. You're looking for a little excitement in your day to day, I guess.
Got to save money on bills somewhere.
I guess, but this sounds like a terrible precursor to. Is it Grizzly Man? What's the?
Oh yeah, Grizzly Man.
The Werner Herzog thing about the
Also
guy.
Canadian.
Did Werner Herzog narrate that one?
Yes,
Doesn't he
this is a
narrate that?
movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, you should.
Grizzly Man's also Canadian.
The
Just saying,
man,
there's a lot of cool stuff up there.
but Grizzly Man's like the guy himself, the bear
Correct.
advocate, is Canadian.
I'm pretty sure.
It doesn't end very well.
It does not end very for
yeah,
him.
so-
I mean, it's grisly.
It is quite grisly, in fact. And I guess from there, that gets us. So Milne, A.A. Milne, will eventually write 2 sets of stories about Winnie the Pooh. Again, we'll read from one of them. And then also writes, I think it's 2 books of poetry set in this 100-acre woods world. So ultimately not that much source material to start with. But then from that, probably most importantly, Winnie the Pooh gets picked up for movies. So there's a short featurette, I think, in the 60s, and then ultimately the 1970s film. I have it in my notes. I'll try and find it. But ultimately picked up for movies, and then popularity just grows from there to the point that like billions of dollars of merchandise in the Winnie the Pooh universe is sold every year. So very much a big deal. A few things just before we get into reading a little bit. Again, this being a podcast, you'll hear us reading the words. Those are Milne's words. But similar to Beatrix Potter, who we've talked about, an important piece of these books are the illustrations. Those illustrations are done by E.H. Shepard, at least for these first 4, 2 sets of short stories and 2 books of poetry. Those are done by E.H. Shepard. I will not be able to do justice to the illustrations. Maybe someone will describe them when we get to that point. But similar to Potter, the early Winnie the Pooh books have entered the public domain as of 2022, I want to say. So while it's not the ideal way to experience these books, you can go, if you want to go and look at the...
I know what you're doing.
I know, making is that a subtweet?
That was an email. It was an email.
It was an email. No, I'm saying it. I'm subtweeting that.
Oh, you're
emailing?
Oh, so you got an email saying like,
how dare you? Or like, why would you say Beatrix Potter should be looked at Project Gutenberg?
Well, yes. Despite the email writer's deep love of Project Gutenberg,
Yes.
she was like, for a children's book, you should probably just get the book and
Which is true.
have a kid in your lap and read that book.
Yeah,
Which is very true.
which is very true. So please go buy Winnie the Pooh.
Go read to kids.
Go read to kids. And just on the E.H. Shepard thing, an important part to the popularity and the kind of enduring nature of these books, Milne inscribed on the copy of the first Winnie the Pooh book that Shepard received this little poem. When I am gone, let Shepard decorate my tomb and put, if there is room, 2 pictures on the stone. Piglet from page 111 and Pooh and Piglet walking. And Peter, thinking that they are my own, will welcome me to heaven. And the Pooh and Piglet one is I think of it as
The
a famous,
hand-in-hand one?
yeah,
Is it?
walking
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
sunset. It's that famous picture is what he's referencing. So I will not be able to describe how important that the art is to it, but please take a look for yourself to see that. Not everyone loved Winnie the Pooh. Maybe let's start there. You have a link that says criticism, I believe. So, I'm going to speak in glowing terms about this book, but not all critics loved it at the time. So this is Dorothy Parker, famous critic for writing for The New Yorker, was not, or a famous satirist, was not a fan of Milne's beloved bear. Don't know if it'll be worth... We can read it. It's not very long. Who wants to read nonsense poems that, in fact, come from Milne's book?
I'll do it.
Cool.
So is that the more it snows?
Yes. So Graham will start at the beginning, and then AJ, do you want to read the rest of it, essentially?
Yes, please.
Cool. Great. So this is going to start with Graham. Graham will be quoting Winnie the Pooh, written by Milne, and then AJ will be reading what Dorothy Parker said about having to read Winnie the Pooh.
The more it snows, tiddly-pom. The more it goes, tiddly-pom. The more it goes, tiddly-pom, on snowing. And nobody knows, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing.
The above lyric is culled from the 5th page of Mr. A. A. Milne's new book, The House at Pooh Corner, for, although the work is in prose, there are frequent droppings into cadenced whimsy. This one is designated as a hum that pops into the head of Winnie the Pooh as he is standing outside Piglet's house in the snow, jumping up and down to keep warm. It seemed to him a good hum, such as is hummed hopefully to others. In fact, so good a hum did it seem that he and Piglet started right out through the snow to hum it hopefully to Eeyore. Oh darn, there I've gone and given away the plot. Oh, I could bite my tongue out. As they are trotting along against the flakes, Piglet begins to weaken a bit. Pooh, he said at last, and a little timidly, because he didn't want Pooh to think he was giving in, I was just wondering how it would be if we went home now and practiced your song, and sang to Eeyore tomorrow, or the next day, when we happen to see him. That's a very good idea, Piglet, said Pooh. We'll practice it now as we go along, but it's no good going home to practice it, because it's a special outdoor song which has to be sung in the snow. Are you sure? Asked Piglet anxiously. Well, you'll see, Piglet, when you listen, because this is how it begins. The more it snows, tiddly-pom. Tiddly what? Said Piglet. He took, as you might say, the very words out of your correspondent's mouth. Pom, said Pooh. I put that in there to make it more hummy. And it is that word hummy, my darlings, that makes the first place in the House at Pooh Corner at which Tonstant Weeder fwoed up.
So made so Parker went by the name Constant Reader. So again, at the very end is saying that this is what made Constant Reader throw up, was having to read through this. So not universal acclaim, but there's something to what's our rule for classics? It's lasted 100 years. So I don't know. Does that prove Parker wrong? I don't know.
Maybe.
Or maybe this is that the...
I never know how to feel about Winnie the Pooh.
Tell me why.
They just seem so unhinged.
No. Our last podcast was unhinged. Tell me what you mean by unhinged.
Well, I think maybe they're on purpose. Piglet is always anxious. Pooh is kind of like an oblivious moron. The rabbit is on he's like, I've always associated him with sort of like a 1980s like stock trader.
Okay.
No, sorry, that's the tiger. The tiger's like that.
Okay.
The rabbit is kind of like a busybody.
High-strung.
Eeyore is clinically depressed.
Okay.
And Christopher Robin is just like, you crazy animals.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these people need an adult. These people need help. I've always thought that these animals need structure.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't they just archetypes? Like rabbits are busy. Piglets are timid. Bears are roly-poly.
I guess
donkeys are often sad because donkeys have pretty bad jobs. Yeah. And then tigers bounce around.
But are they happy?
Not all of them.
Eeyore's unhappy, but if you try to make him happy, he doesn't really want to do it.
I know. That's why I've always found Eeyore frustrating that way.
Yeah.
That he can't be made happy.
That he can't be made happy
is the way.
And then the tiger is just not. I just want him to be prudent. And the rabbit, I don't know.
This is incredible. This is an incredible take.
I've always found it frustrating. I have found them to be frustrating. Okay, and then the person I blame the most.
Wait, okay. Did you feel this as a child?
Yes, I did. Definitely felt this as a child.
As an 8-year-old child, be like, gosh, I wish that tiger would just be more prudent.
No, the thing is, this I definitely remember as a child is feeling like Christopher Robin had a responsibility as the human to help them or to fix things or to order them, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And he was just silly old bear, and it's no friggin' Christopher Robin, you as the adult in the room or whatever. I always just because they were talking animals associated them with Narnia, and in Narnia you have noble creatures and you have evil creatures and this kind of stuff, and here you just got you just got your they're all, I don't know. They all need therapy, these animals.
Yep.
And Christopher Robin I always thought was in the position to guide them, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
I always felt frustrated by that.
Yeah,
and this is definitely my hang up. It doesn't need to be talked. We don't need to talk about it.
You're taking the task given in Genesis to cultivate and grow the world in absolute seriousness, and being frustrated with Christopher Robin that he just wants to experience the animals as they are.
Yep.
As a problem.
Yeah,
I can see that. I can see the
it's every single animal is like a DSM archetype, and Christopher Robin should be helping them out, and he doesn't.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
can Piglet be less timid? He's a piglet. He's going to grow into a pig eventually, and the pig will be less timid.
Yeah.
Hope so.
A tiger will get old and slothful.
Maybe, but in the stories,
Donkey's going to donkey.
in the stories, they don't work towards those things. So
No,
in the stories,
they
they
don't.
don't get to higher moral places, like in
Right.
Frog and Toad,
Right.
or like even in,
Or in any part of
or even
part of
in
Narnia.
I don't know if Beatrix Potter, but like they don't. At the end of it, they don't like improve as characters. They kind of just mumble through.
Yeah.
I also I think as a kid I got bored because I just felt like it wasn't going anywhere.
Did you read the stories, or was that from like the movies?
I think mostly the cartoon.
Yep.
I was like, nothing really happens.
Yeah, maybe
I like
it's-
Tigger because he's exciting, but everything else seems boring.
Now,
Are there great differences between the cartoons and the stories?
Well, it depends which one. So the first movie, the 77 or 76, The Many Adventures of Winnie 97, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is it's a faithful retelling of Winnie the Pooh, the first one. But again, there's not much source material. It's 2 books, and it's 2 books of stories, 2 books of poems. Everything after that is, I was going to say made up, but I guess it's all made up. But as opposed to the real Winnie the Pooh. There was a real Winnie, never mind. But so there might be something to like it's the same Peter Rabbit problem maybe, that like the old PBS cartoon rules and the like newer 3D animated one that's like not based on the Beatrix Potter stories are not great.
like disobey your parents.
Yeah. That's the original ones are like you'll get shot if you don't listen to your friend who's like a really well-behaved
Yeah.
person, and the new ones are
All the cool kids break into stuff. Yeah,
which
Or
I guess
whatever.
is another way of reading all that. No, that's right. I think that's fair, and I guess so Milne would probably follow more in it's an entertaining story for kids. So like the characters in Winnie the Pooh, almost all of them are just toys that his son had, that Christopher Robin had. I think there are 2 that were added for the purpose of the story, but like the original dolls, like there's an original Winnie the Pooh, there's an original Eeyore, there's an original Piglet, and I think I don't know if they're still there, but for a long time they were at the New York, like one of the New York libraries, like they're kept there essentially. So I find that charming, that the one way to read this is as a
father's
father
love.
is like incorporating, it's not too far off from, if I've talked about this, stop me, like Tolkien has a series of letters that he wrote to his like...
Stop.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
To his nieces and nephews about Father Christmas, like pretending to be Father Christmas, writing these letters to them. And then those letters were then collected and published as a book, but it's not really meant for that. It's meant as letters to family.
Or like how Franz Kafka like pretended to be a lost girl's doll going on adventures.
Yeah.
And then, you know the story? So look, Franz Kafka was really bumped up against this girl. She was crying because she lost her doll. And he felt really bad. And he said, oh, your doll isn't lost. Your doll, I bumped into it. She's going on a voyage and she's going on adventures. Give me your address. And she said she was going to write me, give me address and I'll send you her postcards. And the girl was like, awesome. And so for years, Franz Kafka wrote this little girl doll's adventures. And he eventually bought a doll and was like, I'm coming home, and mailed it to her. And the little girl responded, this doesn't look anything like my lost doll. And Franz Kafka wrote back and said something along the lines of like, all journeys transform you. And that was it, right? Like I was transformed on my voyage.
That's fabulous. Wonderful.
I guess the only other thing we've made some references to it, but just kind of timeline stuff. So Milne is A.A. Milne, Alan Alexander Milne, the dad, the guy who writes these books, is born in 1882. He'll then die in 1956. And then from 1956 on, it's this kind of bouncing back and forth of who owns the rights to Winnie the Pooh. Maybe this is something only I find interesting, but he gives these rights to a few different groups. One is the Royal Literary Fund, one is the Westminster School, and the other is the Garrick Club. Do you know any of these organizations?
No, but I'm assuming the Westminster School is the school that's associated with the church, which was probably like a choir school at some point.
It's isn't this a thing in England where what they call a public school is what we would call a private school?
Correct.
So they're kind of flipped. So it's a private school using American terms. That it's they have a list of their prominent members: 3 Nobel laureates, how many, it has a number of prime ministers, 7 UK prime ministers attended there, a well-to-do school, right, that Milne was associated with. The Royal Literary Fund is a fund that, I'm just reading off, it gives assistance to published British writers in difficult financial situations. And then the Garrick Club is like a social club that Milne was associated with. So they're the ones who get these rights to what becomes Winnie the Pooh, and his family, I should say, as well. Christopher Robin received a portion of that ownership, and then Milne's widow also received a portion of that ownership. She would then go on to sell that to the publisher associated with Milne. And then where this is all going is that, again...
Disney bought it.
Yeah, Disney. I mean, that's where this goes, is that in the 1960s is when the first featurette comes out, and they start paying this licensing fee. I think it's twice a year. They pay a bunch of money to all these people who own the rights. 1970s come around. They put out the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh that I've already referenced. It becomes more popular. They're still paying this licensing fee. And then ultimately by 2001, Disney just decides to pay for it outright instead of paying until the end of this licensing agreement. So they pay $350 million to the owners.
Wowzers.
And again, this goes from a guy met a bear at a zoo 100 years before that, and then to be $350 million in 2001, which is probably even like a steal compared to, again, if you're making billions of dollars a year in sales on this stuff, that's a good deal, right?
So are you thinking, Thomas, that all your little stories that you're writing for Asher and Will
it's going to pay off one day. Sign me up. I've got to publish them, right? They would have to be original for me to be able to do that, and it's all Asher wants every night. All he wants is tell me a Star Wars story. That's all he says every day.
Just make it up.
I do make it up, but like they're not very good, and so we've now gone through all 9 of the films multiple times, and so now he just wants me to retell those stories over and over again.
Oh, what's the Thomas Magby version of the Phantom Menace?
That one's very short, and so we talk about there are cars that go fast.
Pod racing?
There's pod racing. We don't talk about the diplomatic stuff because that's super boring.
We're talking about like trade agreements.
So what you have to understand, Naboo was encircled by there's a boy born into poverty, and he has to race to get out, and Jedis don't fight unless they have to. Like, they don't force Watto to give up Anakin. They make a deal. That was the most boring way I could have told that. I promise my kid loves the story. And then all Will does, I just sing him Amazing Grace every night, and then he goes to bed. So it's pretty great. 2001, big money. That's the $350 million. 2022, the original book of stories enters the public domain. Do either of you know what then happens after this? Like a weird thing in the Winnie the Pooh world happens after this?
I don't.
There's a movie that comes out. There's a horror movie that comes out about Winnie the Pooh set in the 100-Acre Woods. AJ's looking at me like I'm a crazy person.
That's right.
It's called Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey.
Yes. Winnie the Pooh Blood. I remember. Okay.
So it's like...
and that's just because it was in the common domain?
Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 comes out in 2024.
I imagine it did well, mostly for the shock of it, not for the quality necessarily. And I actually don't know how much it made. It was made for $100,000 and it grossed $5.2 million. No, $5.2 million.
We got to get
That's a pretty good return. Yeah,
it's pretty good, right? But the funny thing, I have not watched the movie. My understanding is that, so because it's only the characters that entered the public domain, none of the animals speak because the voices are not in the public domain. Like, it's not the Disney movies that are there. It's the story version of them Milne first published in 1925 or whatever it was. So anyway, that's, if you're looking to waste some time, that's you could go watch that, but I don't recommend it, and it's probably very bad, and intellectual property is weird. So, okay, shall we actually start? Should we read a little bit? See if you still hate it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm not saying I hate it. I'm just saying, like,
I don't think it's as moral as you'll want it to be.
Yeah, that's. I'm just.
And that might be a weakness of it. I'm open to it being less than Beatrix Potter. Like, that won't.
I don't know.
It could just be
Does
fun.
everything have to be moralizing?
Yes, everything.
For kids, it does.
Otherwise, they'll. I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, can't you just read a cool book about cars?
My kids love Cars books, so yeah. I'm thinking the movie. Did you mean just like literal cars?
Yeah.
Yeah. They would probably like that
What's
too.
the moral of Cars the movie?
Cars, man. Okay, so the end of Cars. No, don't get me out. So like, there's this race at the end of this. Okay, right? And so it's Lightning against
My nephew loves Lightning McQueen.
against this Dynaco car and against this green car whose name I don't remember. So the three of them are racing. Lightning has trained this entire movie to win this race, right? And he's in first place. He's going to win. Well, the green car, who's a bad guy, bumps into the blue car just so he can move from third to second place, knocks the car off the track. Lightning gives up his first place. He stops on the track, turns around, gets the blue car to push him across. And I don't know if this is the exact quote. It's the version that I tell my kids is that there's more to winning than being in first place.
Why did he help the blue car?
Because
Was it in danger?
yeah, he was like when he was knocked by the green car, he like flipped over and over. Like the kids movie would not say this, but like he was at risk of dying essentially, and so Lightning goes to save him and push him over the line.
Yeah, cars can't be wheels up.
It's
don't
how
like
that
it.
works. Yeah, I mean all the it's all whatever. There's another car who that happened to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But there's more to winning than being in first place. I think is a good lesson. Okay. Cars Rules is the main point. And I haven't seen the third one. The second one's okay. It's not as good, but have you seen them, AJ?
I don't think so.
You're missing out. Okay.
I did see Airplanes, and I think that was a pretty racist film.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Really? I've never seen it.
Every airplane is kind of a country racial stereotype.
Okay. Very strange.
It's not great.
Yeah, I've not seen that. I will not be doing that. Okay, let's, if you click on the link, I forget if it says, oh, sorry. I wanted to make reference. There are some T.S. Eliot poems about Winnie the Pooh, and I think I've copied them in there. Who wants to read first?
I got it.
Graham, you want to read poem 1, and then AJ, if you'll read poem 2?
So you said these are T.S. Eliot?
Yeah, T.S. Eliot poems, yeah.
In the 100-acre wood where friends play, the landscape changed in a peculiar way. Pooh, with his honey pot, wandered with care, seeking wisdom from Owl, the wise and rare. But Piglet shivered in the eerie gloom. Eeyore sighed, his mood a constant doom. Rabbit hurried, anxious in his race, and Tigger bounced, adding a lively pace. Kanga and Roo, in a quest for peace, sought a haven where troubles could cease. Christopher Robin in the wood's expanse navigated a world in a whimsical dance. Yet amid the whimsy and tales untold lies a hunt of mystery, a story to unfold. In the 100-acre wood, both near and far, an enchanting adventure where shadows spar.
That's one of the earlier poems, then this is a bit later. So let's see if we can find some differences. AJ, if you want to read poem 2.
I feel like I need to read this in a preview voice. Like,
Go for
in
it.
the 100-acre. No. In the desolate 100-acre wood, shadows fell. A gloom-laden saga, a forlorn spell. Pooh, with empty honey jar in hand, roamed the barren landscape, a desolate land. Piglet trembled in the ashen haze. Eeyore's sighs echoed in the empty maze. Rabbit sprinted, driven by a nameless fear. Tigger's bounces lost their lively cheer. Kanga and Roo, seeking refuge in vain, yearned for a respite from the haunting pain. Christopher Robin, a spectral figure lost, wandered amid the silence, a heavy cost. The wood, once vibrant, now whispered despair, a wasteland of dreams where hope was rare.
Maybe you're such a dork.
Why am I a dork?
Because this is clearly a chat GPT. Write me a poem on Winnie the Pooh from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland and chat GPT
That's exactly what the
prompt.
prompt was.
Jeez Louise.
How did you...
Because I was like, this is so bad, this can't be Eliot.
Sorry.
I just don't know Elliot well enough, apparently. I was like,
Yeah.
this is kind of weird.
Yeah. I said rewrite T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland as if it were a Winnie the Pooh story. And then it wrote the first...
Both of those poems?
Then it wrote the first one, and then I said, make it more like The Wasteland.
And then it put
That
the
was the
second one.
Sorry.
Oh, jeez Louise, baby. No one's ever
Why
going
did
to
I write a
trust.
sonnet?
That's pretty...
No one's going to trust you again.
I'm okay with
They're
that.
not both sonnets, just the second
Just
one.
the second one, right?
Yeah,
I did think, yeah.
kind of a sonnet.
It did not accomplish the write it like The Wasteland, right?
it did not.
No, it did not.
So it ended with the word wasteland, which is not exactly what I was
I read ahead was AJ was reading and said, "What this says wasteland with Elliot?" Oh my word!
This is not real.
This isn't real.
That was not real. Elliot did not
I'm
write
impressed with you,
poems.
Graham, that you caught on to that.
Thank you. Well, I've been getting so many assignments turned into my. No, I was kidding.
He started to develop a sense for it.
I've developed a taste.
Anyway, so Elliot did not actually write poems about Winnie the Pooh. Those are from Chat GPT. So there you go. Okay. I thought it was pretty good. Okay, let's get to our answer of why. So again, we talked about Winnie. There's a real bear named Winnie, but we still have a few steps before we get to Winnie the Pooh, which is, again, it's like a weird name. So if you'll go in the link that said story, and if you go down to introduction, and I think just the first paragraph answers that question. Let's just start with the first paragraph.
Want me to read?
Yeah, AJ, if you could read that.
If you happen to have read another book about Christopher Robin, you may remember that he once had a swan, or the swan had Christopher Robin, I don't know which, and that he used to call this swan Pooh. That was a long time ago. And when we said goodbye, we took the name with us, as we didn't think the swan would want it anymore. Well, when Edward Bear said that he would like an exciting name all to himself, Christopher Robin said at once, without stopping to think, that he was Winnie the Pooh. And he was. So I have explained the Pooh part. I will now explain the rest of it.
And then the rest goes on to talk about the London Zoo, meeting the bear, Christopher Robin. When Christopher Robin goes to the zoo, he goes to where the polar bears are, and he whispers something to the third keeper from the left, and doors are unlocked, and we wander through dark passages and up steep stairs until at last we come to the special cage, and the cage is opened, and out trots something brown and furry, and with a happy cry of, "Oh, bear!" Christopher Robin rushes into his arms. Now, the bear's name is Winnie, which shows what a good name for bears it is. But the funny thing is that we can't remember whether Winnie is called after Pooh or Pooh after Winnie. We did know once, but we have since forgotten. So again, it's kind of two separate things merged together. And so it's kind of kid logic of like, of course, the name is Winnie the Pooh.
Because I had a swan. The swan's gone, but the name is still here. And here's a bear and needs a name. Just the name's got Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, done.
So
easy.
That's the story.
Like, what more do you need?
Yeah, that is. I mean, that really is how it's presented. Let's just do another piece that is a little strange, and I hope I've mentioned. So Winnie the bear, who we just read about, is a girl. This is a female bear. Winnie the Pooh in the stories is a boy, right? So there's also a thing of like what's going on there as to why the original is a girl, but the doll that Christopher Robin is a boy. So let's go to chapter 1. So this is where Winnie the Pooh, the stories start in proper. So the name of this chapter is In Which We Are Introduced to Winnie the Pooh and Some Bees, and the stories begin. So let's start there. We're only going to go, I will tell you when to stop. It's when we get to the phrase going to get, that's the end of it. So let's have Graham, do you want to read?
Here is Edward Bear coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs. But sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. When I first heard his name, I said, just as you were going to say, but I thought he was a boy. So did I, said Christopher Robin. Well, then you can't call him Winnie. I don't. But you said he's Winnie the Pooh. Don't you know what "there" means? Yes, now I do, I said quickly, and I hope you do too, because that's all the explanation you're going to get.
That's the end of it. So how did Winnie go from being a girl, like a girl's name is what
Winnie.
He's saying, to being the name for a boy?
What does "there" mean?
Well, it's Winnie the Pooh. Like
Yeah.
if you look at how Christopher Robin said "there."
Yeah. So don't you know what "there" means?
Don't you know what "there" means? And you
What does
say,
"there" mean?
We don't know. But that's all the
Well, don't you
explanation
know?
you're going to get.
Oh.
It's kid logic again.
Kid logic.
Like I keep hoping for the. I don't know. I'm going to
Maybe
unveil
this
some.
was another reason why I found it to be a difficult, like uncomfortable. It's like the poor bear doesn't. He's like getting his head bumped, and
Yes.
then there's no. It's sort of like it is. There's like a. There's like an anxiety producing in me of Winnie the Pooh.
But they're all they're all stories of
know.
literal stuffed animals wherein
I always felt so bad for the bear.
for the bear.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he was like, oh, I'm getting bumped down the stairs
Yeah.
because a child's not thinking about my feelings. And
Yeah.
I knew there was a way to come down and whatever.
So
I've repressed trauma from Winnie
that's
the
what
Pooh as a child.
I'm hearing this right now. This is good.
Did someone not think of your feelings, Graham?
Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, no, my feelings were always thought about. And,
I'm glad. That's great.
Privileged child.
and so I felt bad for the bear.
Yeah, that's fair. And then this first story, if you remember from the Many Adventures from the 1970s one, this is the story of Winnie the Pooh wanting to get up to honey that's very high up, but to do that he gets a balloon, he floats up, the balloon gets popped, he falls in mud, covered in mud. If you remember, it's I think the first main story in the movie. So anyway, that's what this first one is. I guess I won't. Just looking at time, I don't know if it's worth reading a whole story. I don't know. I don't think so. Again, I'm fine with that. This is probably the place just to wrap up with it. That I think maybe this is what Graham is getting at, and I think it's fair that there's less of a moral element to these stories, but much more on the side of like we're just telling fun stories. It's my kids' toys, and just building this world out from there.
Why do you think it got so popular? Like, why do you think it's now has a $350 million price tag 100 years later? Like, what is the hook that everybody really likes about them?
I mean, they're just entertaining, and I wish I had a better answer for it.
Well, is it just the mix of these archetype characters, like trying to figure things out? Because that's when I think of the movie, I always think about like Rabbit's got a plan, and Tigger's gung ho, and Piglet doesn't know what to do, and Pooh's kind of stoned, and and Eeyore is like needs a wellness check. Like this is like, do people just sort of like seeing the dysfunction?
I wonder if it's that everyone sees
itself out?
themselves in one of the creatures or wants to hang. Like I always wanted to hang out with Tigger because he seemed fun. Everybody else seemed boring.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a timid kid out there that feels like Piglet, and
that's probably a part of it.
Doesn't Rue want to like go and be adventurous, and his mom is like,
Don't do it.
Yeah.
stay in my pocket.
And then there's Owl, and everyone is like, "Oh, I have that, Grandpa." You know what I mean?
It could be that. Maybe it's relatable, straightforward. It's like they're simple stories. There's got to be something just to nostalgia too of like if you're the first, again, so 1920s is when these are coming out. So you have built in, this is what people have been raised on for a long time now. And like, I loved this as a kid, so now I read it to my kids. So there has to be some of that of you happen to be the one that was there 100 years ago. And so now you benefit from that.
And now it's banned in China.
Yes, due to comparisons between
Winnie the Pooh and Xi
Xi Jinping. Right?
Jinping.
Yeah.
Now this podcast is banned in China.
For saying that, yeah. So I don't know why I'm having trouble answering that. Like it really is just these are entertaining stories. And even less than, I was talking with Sarah after the Beatrix Potter episode, and she's like, Beatrix Potter is deeply moral, but it's not moralizing, right?
Yeah.
Like there are moral lessons to get from it, but it's not going to beat you over the head.
Yeah.
I think this is even a step below that in most cases. And it's just like a more
Primal archetypes.
I don't think kids want primal archetypes. I think they just want stories about toys, playing and having a good time in a make-believe world that is compelling. Yeah.
But you don't have any like hang-ups about them and with their sort of not. I
With
wouldn't
their
go so far as to
neuroses?
say they're amoral.
Yeah.
But with the characters being like with sort of like the humorous dysfunction of it, you don't find that to be. You don't worry that the children that kids are going to find like dysfunction humorous. I seem to remember like a Thanksgiving episode where everything just goes absolutely terrible.
So maybe one of the ironies is so the end of the movie and the end of the first book is, let me get the title, in which Christopher Robin gives Pooh a party and we say goodbye. So there's something to it where this is just a kid playing with his toys for an hour and a half. If it's the movie, roughly that. If you're reading the book, probably. But at the end of it, he says goodbye and he goes to school. If I'm not mistaken. And so there is like this is for children, but it's not. You're not going to stay here. So like there's something else that comes after it. So it is very much it's a break from reality. Like the whole thing is Christopher Robin imagining himself in the 100-acre woods, which I think there was a 500-acre wood near them. Like again, that's also based on a real place. So there's something to that where it's escapist, but fun, and maybe its weakness is that it's probably more for children than, again, Beatrix Potter or Aesop's Fables. I think those have an appeal.
The wisdom, like
Yeah.
almost like not wisdom, proverbial nature. Of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Whereas these might be more on the nostalgia play for them to be appealing. So I don't know. That's my read on it right now.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason I'm not, like, it was not the first thing that I've, like,
Sure.
there's a reason we're doing this after Aesop and Potter and now this. But I still think, I don't know, some things it's okay to just be fun and enjoy and flip through on Project Gutenberg if you ever get a chance.
Cool.
We'll probably talk more in the in-between. There's some stuff about like the actual relation, like between Christopher Robin and his dad. And I don't know, there's some stuff that maybe is interesting there that we'll probably handle in the in-between. But check it out online if you want to just try it for free, or otherwise go pick up a copy. They're pretty cheap now that it's public domain. So
Rock and roll.
buy a copy, read some books, and
Or sell it yourself, public domain.
that's actually true. You could do that if you wanted to.
Yep.
Make your own horror movie.
So, yeah, I mean, you could.
But no talking.
But no talking, and thanks, Canada, for giving us Winnie the Pooh.
Yep. That for that bear that was taken from the Northern Ontario.
To the
Hey, that
London
bear had a
Zoo.
great life.
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
All right, well, this has been Classical Stuff You Should Know. You can check us out on our website, classicalstuff.net. You can email us at theguys@classicalstuff.net. You can patronize us at patreon.com/classicalstuff, or tweet at us at CLSSCAL, right? Is that
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Yeah, that's the stuff. You can tweet at us there, and or just send us good vibes. We like those too. So, all right, I think
Thanks.
that's all we need.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, goodbye. Right?
Goodbye.
Bye.